Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spot Connection with the Weekly Comic Book Roundup. We've got a decently sized week today, all this week, so let's get started. Kicking things off, we've got Legion of X, #1. So, there was a miniseries last year called Way of X. You may remember I covered on here. Focused on Nightcrawler. The idea was basically that Nightcrawler was forming. The initial concept was Nightcrawler is going to make a Krakoan religion. Only he kind of moved past that concept. And him and Legion ended up working together to stop Onslaught, who reemerged in the Krakoan age, and they decided to form a group of not cops for Krakoa. So we begin. Legion is psychically reunited with the woman he loved, Blindfold, who was prevented from being resurrected by the resurrection protocols due to Moira's no precogs rule. But within his mindscape is the precinct. And Nightcrawler's handing out assignments. But among the Legionnaires are Pixie, Dr. Nemesis, Gorgon, Fabian Cortez, and Lost, and Juggernaut, shown on the cover and the promotional imagery. But the intro with Blindfold and Legion largely serves as a recap, kind of explaining this is what's happened, via Legion telling Blindfold this is what you've missed. But apparently she has been resurrected without. It's more that it's not so much that she was her resurrection is slightly different, though. She was not resurrected with a body, as per her request. She explains that without her body, she can now look outwards into a billion nows. And she tells Legion that she has seen such wonders and such shadows. So we start off a recap of the 3 laws with an addendum added by Nightcrawler called the Spark, which is simply 3 words: try new things. On Arakko, Nightcrawler goes to meet with the Regent, his old friend Storm, as she has requested his presence. And well, yeah, we get a fun moment with them, but there is an issue that perhaps is explained, that one of their deities is missing. But Nightcrawler see a fight in Circle Perilous, and it's explained that challenges in the Circle Perilous can involve combat, but not exclusively. Any party may challenge any other. The loser either yields or dies, and it is the office of Obserata, the witness, to bear witness. Meanwhile, Forget-Me-Not has gone to the Green Lagoon. Apparently there's a mutant who's accused. It's a first law violation. Creates a smoke monster, though. Juggernaut then shows up to deal with the smoke monster and or distract the smoke monster portion while Forget-Me-Not finishes off the mutant who summons that smoke monster. For now, Forget-Me-Not, for those unaware, is a mutant whose mutant power is that he cannot be remembered. Everyone forgets him upon within you meet him. Your attention is off him for a microsecond, and you've completely forgotten him. But apparently, some of the there's a group of mutants who sometimes who have taken to occasionally spray painting graffiti on Rockslide. And apparently, it's not. It's explained that when he's painted in all different colors, he starts laughing and dancing. Makes him happy. So this group of students will do this about once a week or so. But Spike was did this, and while he was doing it, suddenly there was blackness. But apparently someone had possessed Spike, and whoever did it made Spike take painkillers before self-mutilating. However, Spike's healing factor metabolized too quickly. Among other things, he cut off one of his fingers, which he dropped. The thought is that it's someone called the Skinjacker. But Lost is able to talk Spike into helping them out. Back on Araco, Nightcrawler is introduced to Weaponless Zen, first of the Inward Watch. It's explained that 600 years previously, in the Ever Siege of Amenth, a wave of civil disorder crippled Araco. Those beset by anarchy cannot wage war. At such times, all Iraqi refer to the chair of law. Orb Sarada's predecessor's strategy was simple: summon a legion of gods, which was, as is his gift, to counsel and lead the Iraqi. These gods were preening, squabbling things that leached their faith and gave the Iraqi nothing. The greatest military disaster that Araco ever suffered. Ugesh the Bridge was not killed for this after his seat on the council was usurped. He remained useful. And in fact, Weaponless Zen carries a box with her, which includes the head of Ugesh the Bridge. And he summons forth a god. Iraqi defeats said god, and then Orb Sarada causes said god to cease to be. Legion shows up at the council chamber. He has some things to bring up. That he's learned through blindfold. Namely, that apparently Nimrod has destroy Warlock's father, Magus. He apologizes for crashing the council meeting, but adds that a child deserves to hear in person that they've lost their father forever, which he states pointedly to Xavier, his father. But Weaponless Zen is assigned to work with Nightcrawler. Asks him about being a priest, and he explains it's complicated. He went through the training, took the vows, but it turned out to be a crazy illusion or something, and she asks if the vows include celibacy, and he explains that that vow didn't really stick. And Weaponless then suggests that she and Nightcrawler copulate. But they arrive at the station, not the precinct, the station. And Dr. Nemesis is working on finding who was to possess Spike. With Cortez being tasked with contacting Sage about initiating a trace. Forget-Me-Not and Juggernaut return. Legion enters, and while walking with blindfold through his mind, comes upon what appears to be a loose personality. Most of his personalities are basically kept in a manner so they can't be. None of his alters can take over. However, it's one that's loose. It's not. I don't believe it's one of his alters, but what appears to be someone loose. Mother Righteous. She explains she's a Hubble trader, nothing too exotic. Spells, spirits, demons, gods, dreams fulfilled, leadership obtained, that sort of thing. And she asks Legion, which does he want, power or glory? And that is where the issue ends. Off to an interesting start. I know Mother Righteous is going to be set up as at least a major antagonist for the first arc, so. But like I said, off to a good start. I really enjoyed the whole thing about with Weaponless Zen and very bluntly hitting on Nightcrawler. That was an amusing moment, and his response about the vow of celibacy not being a vow that's stuck. Well, yeah, Nightcrawler fucks. Anyone should be surprised. Moving on to our next book, though, we've got Avengers number 56. Where we left off, the multiversal Masters of Evil have been assaulting Earth after Earth, and they left Avengers a mountain quite the wreck, with new members being added to the team, including Jane Foster, Valkyrie, and Namor. So this issue focuses on Jane Foster, but she has a dream. She says she has a dream of a flying horse who can talk and screaming her name. But she wakes up next to Thor, her husband. Thor will go off to be the god of thunder, and she's a happy housewife with raising giant pigs. Though she swears she'd hear the pigs giggling sometimes. But she paints also. Sometimes pictures of her with wings. Oftentimes pictures of her with wings. And that night, she sneaks down from her and Thor's bed, or Thor's bedroom. They don't share a bed. They share a bedroom, and they're married. Sitting on the dining room table, though, is Mjolnir. She goes to lift it, and Thor asks what she's doing. She explained that something felt wrong, so she wanted to be sure that everything was the way it was supposed to be. Only Mjolnir isn't Mjolnir. And she smashes it on Thor, and he melts, and the pigs attack. They're Mephistos. And, but then Jane is saved by Jane Foster. Jane Foster is Thor. But she's able to re-find her current self, Valkyrie, and the All Weapon. And Jane take on the Mephistos. Mighty Thor explains to Jane what's going on. Apparently Mephisto has been targeting Avengers with temptation traps all across the multiverse. But at the time that she was grabbed by Mephisto, she was searching through the nether realms for a missing Ghost Rider, Robbie Reyes. With Mighty Thor explaining to her that, the Avenger Prime says that Robbie is driving a car from Earth to Earth and recruiting more Omni-Avengers to defend Infinity's End. Some say he's the All-Rider now. But Valkyrie asks Mighty Thor if she's from the future. But Jane explains that Mighty Thor says no, she's from another Earth. They shake hands, part ways, and Jane stands there remembering the sound of the thunder as Mighty Thor flies away. But she tells the Avengers all this, but Tony goes, "Hey, yeah, I had something similar happen. While I was in Stone Age. I fought Iron Man with an Iron Man. I fought Mephisto with an Iron Man suit made of ice. He built out of ice because he's amazing like that." But he asks how Valkyrie defeated him. And she thinks to herself that she's not, as she looks at Mjolnir sitting on the table, did she really defeat him after all? And that is where the issue ends. Interesting. I like the idea that perhaps, maybe that it caught leading. It was kind of having her kind of question: should she's her work, being Thor or being Valkyrie? That's an interesting thought for Jane. So, but yeah, moving on to our next book, though, we got Captain Carter number 3, where we left off. Peggy Carter had made some waves with MI6 and Strike, and her partner within Strike, Elizabeth Braddock, had a gun pointed to the back of her head, which is where this issue picks up. Betsy turns on her lights, takes down the two her would-be assailants physically, though they are able to physically subdue her until she utilizes her telekinesis, leading them to escape out the window. She picks up the discarded pistol, however, one of them, and notes that it's a strike weapon. It's a strike-issued weapon. She calls Peggy to let her know what's going on, apparently from just outside Peggy's flat. And Peggy and Betsy talk with Peggy's neighbor Harley, who points out a few things that they can do to get information on who may have used the weapon in question. Not entirely legal ways, but yeah. But at Strike headquarters, Peggy goes to put a zip drive into the leader's, basically the director's laptop, so that Harley can access everything. But then she gets called to briefing room C, and it's basically it is for all intents and purposes, it's the elevator scene from Captain America: The Winter Soldier, just with Peggy and in a briefing room. And you don't get that whole moment of, before we get started, anybody want to get out? You don't have that moment. She just lays into him. But someone left the room shortly after she walked in. And well, Peggy does give chase. The mystery woman manages to disappear, but there's someone already waiting for her in the lobby at Strike headquarters. Tony Stark, grandson of Howard Stark. Apparently, Howard talked about Peggy incessantly. Peggy blows Tony off and goes to track down a woman, but turns out there's that the Prime Minister is orchestrating things with the strike, the members of the strike who tried to assassinate, who tried to murder Betsy. And it turns out that pictures of Harley's able to discover that pictures of Harry seem to have been altered to put Harry in them. Betsy follows the mystery woman, but when she catches up to her, a rocket is fired at her, and Tony Stark flies in to save her. Not in a red and gold suit of armor, though. It appears he's modified himself, with rockets in his boots and a repulsor ray in his hand. The way his hand kind of comes apart, it reminds me somewhat of how Ulysses Claw's hand was in Black Panther, but of course, before they get answers, more masked thugs come their way, and that is where the issue ends. Interesting stuff. I really like just kind of the subtle nod of the elevator scene. With that, the elevator scene just in a briefing room instead. It was a nice touch. I especially liked seeing Betsy using her mutant powers. I'm guessing human mutant relations are maybe a little less frosty on that Earth. I guess we'll find out as the series continues. Moving on to our next book, though, we've got Magic the Gathering: The Hidden Planeswalker, number 2. Where we left off here, after Jace Belern's sacrifice to stop Merit Lodge on Amonkhet, Liliana has thought often of this, and then of course there was the fact that, and Tezzeret, the Planeswalker Tezzeret, attacked her for apparently a memory. But Liliana, under the alias of Professor Onyx, is none too happy having been attacked, though she did manage to fend off the attack. But Tezzeret still escaped. One of the deans and one of the students are informed of what's been going on, with the student, Dina, explaining that calling Liliana a hero, to which Liliana explains that if she's a hero, then they're already doomed. And Liliana then adds that never say nice things to necromancers. It damages their mystique. But some digging is done. An interesting... I feel like the arc that Liliana's character arc in this is more around the concept that she doesn't view herself as a hero. It should be also noted, Tulare Community College recently did a pair of videos ranking the 10 worst villains in the Magic multiverse and the 10 greatest heroes. Liliana came out as the greatest hero, with good reason. She's sure she has done bad things, but she's also been trying to she is trying to she was willing to sacrifice herself during the War of the Spark to stop Nicol Bolas, until Gideon Jura stepped in and said, no, I'll do it. I'll make the sacrifice play. But memory, they're able to figure out while being linked to Merit Lodge's consciousness, as well as all the thralls that on Amonkhet, there was a lot of psychic information that Liliana absorbed, including a memory of someone facing her down. The person is described as being human, white blonde hair. Magic seemed to make her almost shine. And Liliana is sure that the young woman's a Planeswalker. Apparently there's quite a bit of the biblioplex on Planeswalkers, with small panels making as reference points to various noteworthy Planeswalkers, including Sarkhanval, Kiora, Ugin, Spirit Dragon, Nahiri, and Cameo. But they do manage to find something. Courtesy of the student, Dina. However, Tezzeret is still on the plane that Strixhaven is located. Just chilling out, reading some books. And apparently the plane in question is apparently a plane named Akan. Liliana manages to planeswalk there, though Tezzeret is able to follow. And Liliana finds the girl, the Planeswalker. Is on the verge of bringing her from the brink of death when Tezzeret shows up. Apparently he was trying to find her. To what end? No one... Who knows, but Tezzeret being, well, Tezzeret, he wanted someone else to do his dirty work for him. However, everything that Liliana's done in the issue has her needing to, well, recharge her spells. But the Planeswalker steps out of her frozen prison, attacks Tezzeret to defend Liliana, saying, asking please be told that she picked the right side. And that is where the issue ends. I'm really like this. I appreciate the idea that Liliana, especially after the deaths of both Gideon and Jace, is very much is having a moment of it is having moments of self doubt, so to speak. Not so much about her powers, but so much as her place within her place, so to speak. Like there's a saying, "No one's the villain in their own story." Personally, I tend to find that a bit reductive, and you know, in fact, I have often when telling people about past things that if I did bad, I'll mention, yeah, I did a shitty thing. I think an addendum to that also is the idea, if you can be the villain in your story, there's also the idea you're not necessarily always the hero either. And I think that's something that Liliana's trying to, it feels like Liliana's trying to come to grips with the idea that maybe she isn't the villain she thinks she is. I mean, she's teaching, she seems to be basically in a, she's rarely, throughout the lore of Magic the Gathering, she hasn't exactly been portrayed in the worst of lights. Sure, okay. In the lead up and during War of the Spark, she was portrayed in a more villainous light. But even then, it's because, the deals she made, while she had wiped out the demons she made a deal with, well, the witness of the contract was still around. And the witness in question was none other than Nicol Bolas. So, yeah. But, I mean, Vraska was an agent of Bolas. And she's one of the main protagonists in the Magic ongoing. We don't. Part of being a sentient being, honestly, is that sometimes you do things you're not proud of, and you have to deal with that. And I appreciate the idea that seems to be Liliana's kind of arc, is dealing with the things she's not part of having done herself. Moving on, however, to our next book, we've got Something is Killing the Children, number 23. Let's take a quick peek behind the mask. So where we left off, Erica had been arrested in Tribulation, New Mexico. But she gets her phone call, uses it to call Big Gary, telling him what's going on. Apparently, Big Gary's been feeding her information, or feeding her cases to go after her. But she explains that whatever is in Tribulation, it appears to be a duplicate type, which that scares even Big Gary. But he figured, well, I can send a team of white masks to help you, and a pack of white masks to help you out. But Eric wants to know what she wants. She wants to know how to take it down herself. But Big Gary's also going to clean up after her, wipe the arrest, and But Eric talks to the sheriff. Gives her a cover story that she was with the New York Daily News reporter. So she was there to take pictures. Though the sheriff points out that there was a camera in her bag. But the sheriff asks why she wants to write the story. And she explains that, it says something about How there are all of these horrors in the little corners of the country that people don't want to know about, but they really ought to. The sheriff states that she doesn't sound like that she doesn't sound like a New Yorker, but Erica points out that there's lots of types of New Yorkers. Asking in fact if the sheriff ever met anybody from New York. Seemingly he hasn't. But he tells her that he can't have her breaking her private property. It's also pointed out that she does have a large number of knives. But she asks some questions of him, and he adds, he's not one of those cops that's able to, get into the mindset of a serial killer, but Erica says that it might be best to consider an animal, a predator. Asking if the sheriff hunts, and he explains that he does sometimes, but a lot more when he was younger. But she goes on to add that suggests think of the type of prey that this predator likes. Where can find that prey? He says, you may think we're dealing with some kind of monster, and she says, aren't we? Which, they are, but the sheriff doesn't know that. But she gets a paper map of the town and is able to find the various hot springs, because that appears to be something that really, gets this monster going. Meanwhile, a plane is landed in Chicago at O'Hare Airport and is met by the Slaughters, by the house of Miss Cutter, who's met at the airport by Cecilia of the House of Slaughter. But Miss Cutter follows a rather garrulous woman into the women's room, and then steps out with her hands covered with blood on her hands, and explains that a cleanup crew is needed in there. And so, with Cutter explaining that the woman was so rude on the flight and said awful things about her doll. But as they leave the airport, Cutter asks Cecilia about Erica. Namely, if Cecilia knows Erica well. Cecilia states that she likes the things she does, but Erica would say she doesn't. Then Cutter asks if Cecilia wants her dead. Cecilia dances around the answer until Cutter simply tells her to say it. And Cecilia does. And Cutter explains that she's going to make Cecilia's dreams come true. And that is where the issue ends. I'm really liking this arc. Just if for no other, at first it was starting to feel like it was going to just be a rehash of the first arc, but it's not, and I love it for that. Moving on to our last one, we have DC vs. Vampires Hunters. So where we left off. Dick Grayson had been revealed to be the Vampire King, and he had managed to take out a large number of the Bat family, including Batman. So the issue takes place in the fallen city known as Gotham, seat of power of the Vampire Kingdom. A group of humans are trying to escape with aid from Martian Manhunter. When Damian shows up, having been turned, and goes after Manhunter, the formerly Wayne Tower, the headquarters of the Global Vampire Coalition, Damian shows up, bearing Marcia Manhunter's chest harness. Mr. Terrific explains that Damian will be allowed to see King Richard if he brings in one of Richard's enemies alive. At Mench Street Station, long abandoned, it was the headquarters of a very small resistance movement. Alfred is attending to Jean's wounds, and those that are the resistance movement is doing what they can. But a plan is hatched, and so Robin returns to Wayne Tower, seemingly with Alfred packed into a duffel bag. Damian brings Alfred to Dick, but it's not Alfred. It's Marcia Manhunter, and well, he has to deal with Zaz, Grodd, and Wonder Girl as well. Marcia Manhunter has to deal with those three, while Damian deals with Dick Grayson. And, of course, Damian's mad that Dick killed Bruce. But it's explained that the resist fire had been sent by Nightwing to take out the resistance movement as soon as Damian left. Damian makes his way out and discovers this to be the case, staking various lackeys along the way, as well as Black Mask. And upon arriving at the resistance headquarters, he does the same to Fire. However, in the process of doing so, Damian is rather badly burned. Alfred gives Damian some of his blood to hopefully heal. When Nightwing shows up, willing to make an offer. He'll let Alfred and Damian walk out of there. They'll never get another shot at him. But he wants to know that Damian's okay. Since Damian has something that Nightwing and the rest of the vampires lack: compassion. Nightwing's thought is, at least in part, that he has that compassion because when Damian turned, he had Alfred to watch out, to look out for him, while Nightwing had no one. And Alfred says goodbye to Nightwing as he leaves with Damian. And that is where the one-shot ends. I'm presuming that the series will be back later next month. But good issue. Very good issue. Anyway, that's going to do it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying live long and rock hard.